Hey, Michael J.
So, two macro topics. Mythic Championship Historic, more Zendikar Rising. What are your thoughts?
That sounds like one topic plus a joke. Let's start with the joke.
Okay. So, the joke, star-studded top 8 at the Mythic Championship. And
That's no joke, man. That's no joke. This is like one of the best top 8s ever.
Very solid top 8. To be fair, a very curated pool, though, so if you start with 16 DIs, don't be surprised if 8 of them make top 8 or so.
Yeah, it's definitely... But, I mean, it's not like this pool is even as pre-cultivated or whatever as, like, a Worlds 24 or whatever.
That's fair.
Yeah, so, like, this is... There's just no two ways about it. Say what you will for the boring cards and decks. There are no questions about the skill level of the top 8 players.
No. Nope. You have Gabriel Nassif, all-time great. Luis Scott Vargas, all-time great. World champion Seth Manfield, Ken Yukihiro, Matt Nass, outstanding deck designers there. All kinds of superstardom in this top 8. And a variety of different former standard decks that have one extra card.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the champ Seth Manfield is just playing the Sultai deck that got banned in standard, except it has Thoughtseize.
So this is just the standard deck, right? Like
No. It's got like
one Hinterland Harbor.
It has 2 Drowned Catacomb.
Yeah.
It has 1 Maelstrom Pulse.
Oh, there you go. Oh, 2 Languish.
Yep. But no, it is very revealing of kind of a theme of this tournament, which is standard decks that just got banned last week, plus 1 old card. And the 1 old card is, like, fake in every instance. Thoughtseize? What set was that in? They just added it. Languish? They just added it. Muxus? They didn't even add it. They just made it up.
It's just a made-up card, yeah.
Unlike the other cards that, like, just evolved naturally out in the wilderness. But
so, like the Jund decks, they're just, like, the standard sacrifice deck, but then they just get collected company? Like, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But, like, a lot of these decks, their mana's better. Because you play with some of the old dual lands, but given the fact that, there's been a slight uptick in power level in the last year, plus when you just, like, reprint random cards that are super powerful, like, if you just reprint powerful cards, yeah, guess what? The cards from the increased power level year and the high level reprints, they are the dominant story. But yeah, the Jund decks, most of them are all the same. One of them is really, it's also the same. It just says Bolas's Citadel in the main deck. But yeah, no, there's 4 of those, and sometimes you just collect a company up your Cauldron Familiar. There's also
banned card, though. That card is Bizand. Instant.
Yeah. Yep. Banned. There you go.
That's like the growth spiral that Seth Manfield, the champion.
Yeah, but you have to admit, printing Phyrexian Tower for no reason is powerful.
You mean in a sacrifice theme deck?
And then we have Mono Red Goblins with Phyrexian Tower, of course. Mono Red Goblins with the technology of Ironcrag Feet, because you just weirdly have, like, I don't know, half a dozen Bloodbraid Elves for 6 mana. But yeah, it's Goblins. And Mono Black Gift. This is a pretty cool deck. It is subsidized by 4 Phyrexian Towers. But this is a cool deck. This is the one deck here that's like, I mean, even, like, Phyrexian Tower is like a role player here. It's not like Muxus in the Goblin deck where it's just the deck. Here, this is actually a deck that's the kind of decks we used to see in modern or in extended back in the old days when decks would just sort of organically emerge when you just design the sets and you sort of, you end up with some cross format and cross era cards that synergize in new ways. This deck, it's not just an analog of a standard deck. It has a bunch of similarities and some themes, but we're seeing stuff like Stitcher Supplier fueling your Fiend Artisan, Crypt Breaker with a soft tribal theme, Priest of Forgotten Gods, as an additional way to ramp out your Phyrexian Tower or your Massacre Worm. And along with Phyrexian Tower, helping ramp out your Massacre Worm or your Gate to the Afterlife, or rather the God Pharaoh's Gift if you draw it. This is it obviously has a lot of similarities, but this is a legit new animal. We saw it a few weeks ago, but it is a new archetype in this format.
It's my favorite deck from the top 8. It's the only one with any soul whatsoever. Yeah, it's let's call it more unique, right? I do appreciate
by far
that the Phyrexian Tower kind of goes both ways. It produces extra mana to produce, a 6 casting cost Massacre Worm or a 7 casting cost God Pharaoh's Gift at the same time. It's, getting some value out of having those creatures in the graveyard from its recursion themes, etc.
Oh yeah, and it's no surprise to see one of the greatest deck builders in the world, Matt Nass, definitely an architect of a lot of new archetypes over the years. This deck is actually I love all the little interactions too, like Fiend Artisan. Being able to find Massacre Worm is a very powerful dimension, but you've actually got a little bit of a it's almost like the old survival recur days where it's not just about the tutor targets. You go get some value from Ravenous Chupacabra, and you get some value from the Reaver, and you get some value from the Supplier. I love that. You should only be allowed to play Phyrexian Tower if you play decks like this.
Yeah, so I do like you get the little chip shot up the chain each way. That's pretty cool. And then all those guys, like all the Chupacabras and Lazotep Reavers with their 187 effects.
Low Strider.
Yeah, they're all paying you back when you get them back, too. So that's pretty cool.
And you got the little things like milling your Woe Strider and then escaping it back. Just an extra option.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, this is like a pretty good Stitcher Supplier deck. It's not a hard Stitcher Supplier deck, but it's it gets a little val from him.
Yeah.
Every bit is a Dark Ritual anyway.
Yeah. Particularly the cheap ones. But yeah, this is the sort of deck that, man, I do kind of wish Historic was a little bit more about this kind of stuff. But maybe it will be in time.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. My favorite archetype in Historic didn't get anywhere near the top finishes. So 0 for 0.
Did you see Mono Green Planeswalkers? The only thing that breaks my heart is that there's not just random Chandras or something, Elspeths, whatever, just a little Raph Levy style of Mono Green Planeswalker. But here, Christopher Leonard packing lots of Nissas, Vivians, Karns. Basically a green monsters ramp deck. Just sort of play a bunch of proactive ramp and threats. But I don't know, man. Other than that, almost everything else was just Goblins, Jund Sacrifice, and Sultai.
I love this archetype. So for a Karn the Great Creator deck, how are there no Chaos Wands at all on the sideboard? That card's legal, isn't it? In Historic?
I
think it is.
So, the thing about Chaos Wand is you got to know it exists.
Okay. Well,
no, it's legal in Historic. Wasn't it in 2019?
Yeah.
So, it hasn't been banned yet.
So, yeah, Chaos Wand is my favorite card for this kind of archetype. And I do appreciate the old school Explorer getting played here. Doesn't come out at instant speed, but still does a little damage.
I'm off Explorer. Whatever. Sure.
Explorer,
It's
little
easier to
Mind
cast
Stone.
than Growth Spiral in this deck. Dude, we need the new cards, man. The new cards are where it's at.
All right, new cards.
I can't handle... Dude, okay, so... if we set aside the 30 Goblin deck, Sultai deck, and Sacrifice decks at the top, there is still one more deck we haven't talked about yet, which is the... what is it? Teamer Flash? It's another Uro deck.
It's played by one of the all-time greats. A Braid!
Oh, yeah.
A Braid in Teamer Flash, too.
No knock on the players. I respect... You're playing for the big bucks. If this is the format, this is the format. And it's good that there's discipline. It's not like the games are bad here. It's just... it's just weird seeing so many standard decks with one new card. And the one new card in this case is Magma Quake.
Magma Quake? I don't even know what that does.
It's the instant Earthquake, but instead of hitting players, it hits Planeswalkers.
Oh.
Yeah, this is just weirdly a real card, huh?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. What?
Well, I'll tell you what.
What in the world set was this in?
If I don't know, a fake set, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, it was in Commander. But then, Historic, it's just all bets are off.
I mean, I can tell you for certain, if I'm sitting across the table, or the digital table in this case, from world champion Psychotog player Carlos Ramao, he would get me with Magma Quake. I would never see it coming. I would even look at his deck list, because that's the kind of tournament it's in.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were at least a couple people who just were like, I have no idea if this is really legal. You could just play through the whole tournament. Now, of course, it was one of the Jumpstart cards.
Oh.
Right.
There you go.
Magma Quake, like all burn spells, was in Jumpstart.
Yeah. I like that there's 6 Explorers in this deck. 6 Explorers, 28 lands. Get there. So,
Zendikar Rising's full spoilers out, and we've had a chance to really start breaking it with some of the cards. And plus, mostly just find some good interactions. But one legitimate candidate for possibly broken, possibly not actually good, but might be insane, Valakut Exploration in Vintage. I mean, that card might be really good in other formats too, but dude, have you considered just Fast Bond with Valakut Exploration? So it's the 2 and a red enchantment. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. And at the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled from Valakut Exploration, put them in their owner's graveyard and deal that much damage to each opponent.
I don't see why that would be bad. I think this card is... I had earmarked as a class of cards that I was inspired by when we were talking about Field of Ruin a few weeks ago. Just kind of put off to the side, can you build triggers for... can you build a deck that just benefits from having multiple lands come into play and how much extra value you can get from them? There's that red guy that has double attack phase, for example. And I mean, I'm even just talking about playing it in Standard. But obviously in Vintage, the combination of Landfall and Fast Bond seems very powerful.
Yeah, each land gives you another card, and if it's another land, you get another card. And if it's a fetch land, you get 2 cards. And if your deck has a lot of fetch lands, you just have a lot of 0-mana draw 2s.
Is this the kind of thing where, I mean, I hate to put it this way because maybe it's crazy, but what if you played a lot of lands that gain life when they come into play? Just to keep going?
In fact, I don't think you should play a lot. I just think you should play 4 Radiant Fountains. And the reason you should play 4 Radiant Fountains is because you make a profit. And the reason making a profit is so good is because you play 4 Storm Cauldrons. Or Zern Orb also, and maybe a way to Crucible back or whatever. But if you Storm Cauldron with Radiant Fountain, you just get infinite life.
That's
if you have Fast Bond. Because you keep tapping it, getting it back, tapping it, getting it back, tapping it, getting it back. So you get infinite life, and you draw all the cards in your deck.
So Storm Cauldron is a 5 casting cost artifact from Ice Age Alliance's block?
Yeah, from Alliances, right.
So, is that a thing that you actually want to be doing with this? Like, it seems to me like Fastbond and Valakut Exploration is a powerful 2-card combination, and that Valakut Exploration, even without Fastbond, I feel like if you have stuff like Fetchlands going on, you get something out of it. But
well, the thing is, playing one Storm Cauldron is kind of nice, because if you're already playing Tinker, and you have one Memory Jar, having one Storm Cauldron adds a real dimension to the deck.
I keep forgetting this is Vintage, where all decks blend into one single
Okay,
layer.
well, let's jump over to Standard, because Valakut Exploration has a very different context there. In the powered formats, it's so heavily about abusing fetchlands. Like in Modern, you can obviously play Primeval Titan type decks and just turn this into the most unreal Outpost Siege ever. But in Standard, the big hurdle you got to overcome is the fact that it's an Outpost Siege that's not actually going to hit every time. And Outpost Siege lets you still play land. Valakut Exploration's ability does let you play land, but if you don't have the ability to play multiple land in a turn, you're actually it's awkward for you because you already played your land in order to get the land. So its ability turns into being like a Chandra ability, where instead of getting an extra card, you get some damage, but in this case, it's 1.
Well, I think the fact that it's 3 is a really big step in the right direction if you're going to think about it as some kind of an Outpost Siege, though, right? Right, like
totally.
All those
and it can
cards,
have virtual haste later in the game.
Outpost Sieges and Chandras and whatever the other thing was before there was Outpost Siege. That
a million of them.
That was basically Outpost Siege. They all cost 4, right? So
well, Elk and Bottle, that one only costs 3. It just costs 3 a turn.
I mean, even like Experimental Frenzy, right? That was like the postmodern Outpost Siege. So I think the fact that this one costs 3 puts it in a different category. Also, we were talking before about like the potential playability of certain cards. Like I was saying that new 5 casting cost Threaten might be a thing that I might consider playing, even though neither side is very attractive. I do think having the option of turning some of your spells into lands for purpose of just getting the tick on Valakut Exploration, that's a non-zero, right? You can just play the land side, even if it's not very good, because it comes into play tapped, just so that you can get a trigger where you might not otherwise have gotten one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's even better with the good ones. Like the 3-drop 3/3 with landfall +2/+2, Kazandu Mammoth.
The green Modal double face card?
Yeah, so it's a 3/3, so it's kind of a Woolly Thoctor of sorts, right? And then it can also just be kind of forest cycling 1, but it is reliable. You don't actually need any other land. It could be the last one. It could be the only kinds of things in your hand. So you could actually play a low land count deck. But it's kind of a Woolly Thoctor with cycling, right?
I don't know. I thought about this card in a far different way than a Woolly Thoctor with cycling. To me, this card is actually largely about the combination of its reliability. Like, if you compare this to like the red Steplinks or something, that's not a reliable card, right? It's 0/1. This is a 3/3 for 3, so it has, call it a little gnarled mass to it, but you could have 2 of them in play or something. But because it's in green, you can follow this thing up with a Fabled Passage and what's the explosive vegetation called?
There's a lot of explosive vegetation.
I mean, you can just come in for a bazillion damage. That's the thing you can do. If you have multiple copies, it's really compelling. It's always just a 3/3 for 3, even if you don't have the other stuff. And it's a land.
Yeah, but that's all the same thing I said.
All right, Woolly Thoctor.
It's more explosive. Unlike Woolly Thoctor, the range is distributed. Sometimes this thing dies to a deal 3, and sometimes it does 9. But it's
that's a far wider range than Woolly Thoctor.
Definitely, but it averages out to exactly 5. I did the math.
Well, Woolly Thoctor averages out to a little less.
They tried to make it. They tried to make it obvious. This thing's a woolly mammoth. Seriously, dude, it's all there. Connect the dots, man. But no. So are you into Valakut Exploration just straight up in a standard deck?
I was thinking about it as a sideboard card in a red deck.
So what about it straight up in a red-green deck using Rada and Dryad of Ilsean Grove?
See, that's... So that takes a little setup, but once you've got the setup going, it's like a Matt Nass God Pharaoh's Gift engine. Once you've got that stuff going, right? You're just machinery, just kind of all helps each other.
Maybe. It's also kind of just like a red-green Valakut deck.
I mean, a really... Like, you had to invest in mana.
Well, you can be a little bit more creature-heavy and aggressive, but, like, it's not like Rada or Dryad of Ilsean Grove are bad cards.
In fact, both are very good cards.
Yeah. Plus, if things go long... So Rada... First of all, the ability to like play land off the top, great in strategy anyway, and helps hit your land drops with Valakut. And Valakut Exploration ensures that you're going to have a fresh top all the time. But you can also, with Rada and Valakut Exploration, stack the triggers. The other thing is that when you end up with just lots and lots of land in play, Rada's like a legit threat.
Oh, yeah. Rada is at least like 40% about that last line.
And and with Valakut Exploration, with Dryad of Ilsean Grove, now when you landfall and reveal another land, you get to play that one too and reveal another land. And even though you don't get like Wooded Foothills, you still get to play 4 Evolving Wilds and 4 Fabled Passage. Like there's a pretty good amount of fetch landing if you want it.
Would you Lost But Seeking in this kind of a strategy?
I would try it because I think Azusa, Lost But Seeking, it's definitely a far lower floor than any of the previous ones we discussed. But like, they kind of all stack up in a way, right? Where Rada and Valakut Exploration are giving you the extra cards, so you might just want to play a lot of Dryad of Ilsean Groves and Azusas just to be like reliably always doing it.
Like, I feel like if you get maybe not any 2 of those 4, because like Dryad of Ilsean Grove and Azusa Lost But Seeking put together, it doesn't seem too exciting to me, right? But
wait, what? Sure, yeah.
Yeah, but if you get some of the other of those, like 2 of them into play at the same time, you're kind of, not only are you doing it, they're doing it with each other, And if you get 3 of them in play, you're really encouraged to be successful, all win solution.
So I think that for early interaction, there's plenty of stuff, whether it's Bone Crusher Giant or the new deal 3, that if you have 7, you can actually deal 5, which is actually kind of a sweet added dimension, You might even play
Royal Eruption.
Right, and you might even main deck Thundering Rebuke, depending on how the format goes, the deal 4 to a creature or player, or planeswalker, I mean. But as far as extra creatures go, I'm wondering, first of all, what do you think of Scavenging Ooze in the New World?
I mean, Scavenging Ooze I already thought was one of the best cards in Standard. It's so good. It was like a transformative card for the mono green decks. And it's so good, like the slow controlling decks that have access to green, like some of those Uro decks that are Bant and so forth. There's just sideboarding it. I think that card is really fantastic. It's a strategy breaker for graveyard decks. It's life gain against red decks. It's size to block, size to attack. I don't know. Legacy staple. That guy is everything.
So here's my question. If you've got Bone Crusher Giants, the Royal Eruption, the Scavenging Ooze, do you want more 2-drops? And if you do, does Lotus Cobra do anything for you?
I mean,
it's kind of fragile, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like it's going to eat a lot of Bone Crusher Giants.
Is Lotus Cobra so much more fragile than Paradise Druid? Right, so Paradise Druid has hexproof, right? But I
don't know that you want to play Paradise Druid though. What if you just didn't do it that way. Like, if you just played a 2-cost card that affected the board.
Paradise Druid is not going to be available anymore, right? Isn't that one side?
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, any accelerator. Like, why not just play with a little bit of, like...
Well, for one thing, Lotus Cobra has an extremely high ceiling, right? So,
no question. Very high ceiling.
Like, you know, if you just have Lotus Cobra in play and then you play a Fabled Passage, you know, your entire hand is in the battlefield sometimes, right? So I think that you have multiple Lotus Cobras is another scenario. So I think that its fragility is something that you just kind of have to accept. But at the same time, if people are going one card for one card against your Lotus Cobra, it's not that bad. I mean, if you're going like first half of a Bone Crusher Giant against a Lotus Cobra, on one hand, that's not a great exchange for the Lotus Cobra player. On the other hand, they were going to get their money on something probably, right? If they drew that card. As long as you have creatures that have 2 toughness or less. So I'm not that worried about it in exchange for how good it can be when it's not killed.
Sure.
Especially if we're talking about playing multiple lands per turn.
Mm-hmm. Here's a crazy option. Swarm Shambler. Green 1/1. I'm sorry, green 0/0 Fungus Beast. It starts with 1/1/1 counter. And whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. And then it also has the ability tap and pay 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on Swarm Shambler.
This card is very powerful. Like, really powerful.
It's still off for 1 mana, right?
Yeah, I think this card is going to be an all-star in some of those Hardened Scales type decks in the future. How could it not?
Well, for sure there, but what about just straight up?
First of all, I would play this card in Standard with that green-white kind of Winding Constrictor guy to begin with.
Yeah, but you're still just going for the synergies. I'm saying, what if you're just playing this straight up? You're just in a red-green aggro deck or something.
I think this card is good enough to play without additional synergies. Although, I would probably want to play some cards that gave +1/+1 counters outside of the Swarm Shambler itself in order to take advantage of
that's fair.
Kind of its middle ability, but I could just totally see just playing it in a not dedicated +1/+1 counters context.
I don't think it's good enough to just put in your red-green ramp deck. I do think you kind of need to be a +1/+1 counter deck or an aggro deck.
It's certainly good enough to just randomly throw into your red-green beatdown deck or your
that's what I'm thinking.
White beatdown deck.
Like this guy compared to like all of the million 1/1s with haste. This is just a much stronger card.
Yeah, and the other thing is like this is the kind of card if you're playing like mono green mirror where it's not only the case that creature removal is relatively rare on both sides, but that a lot of the creature removal is contingent on size, and creatures are removed largely because they're like running into each other. Just getting a guy down that can get bigger and bigger and bigger is a big game. The mono green mirror games often just come down to whoever drew the last scavenging ooze, right? So last scavenging ooze comes down, and there's quite a bit of mana in play, and that ooze can become big enough to beat up any questing beast, right? I mean, it'll probably die because it's questing beast, but you know what I mean, right? Contain questing beasts and stone coil serpents and whatever else, and just not get run over. I think Swarm Shambler obviously doesn't have the same kind of do it all in one turnness, but this is a 1 mana card that has additional abilities, right? Like, I could totally see like mid game you've got like a 3/3 Swarm Shambler, or like you're just sandbagging some kind of a giant growth when they come in. You get them in combat, and then you get 2 activations out of this, and they just never attack again. Right? Like, because it's just too threatening to sit there with 1 mana open.
Well, sure.
Like, right.
I feel like it's still going to be advancing anyway, but
well,
I do think the
vigilance, you know?
Yeah, I know. What I mean is it's continuing to grow.
Oh, that's what I'm saying as well. Right? Like, it just gets to the situation where it's just bigger than a questing beast. Like, what else could you have wanted from your 1-drop?
Certainly in Standard. But I don't know, man. There's a different green creature that kind of puts our troll to shame. Marassus Broutling. It's the 2 and a green 3/3. It doesn't have, Troll Warrior, but it is kicker 1 and a G. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with a kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand. So what do you think of the bigger Den Protector?
It's only good if you're playing it in a deck that's got other kickers, right? To be fair, the second Marasa Sproutling you draw can get the first one back, right? So
that's the best target,
right? So I think that's kind of pretty cool. Any cards like this, I think, always have an asterisk next to them, which is kind of like you have to have the time and space to be able to do these things, and a 3/3 has to matter, given the fact that you are now in a zone where you're spending 5 mana to make a 3/3. All those things have to kind of lace together and continue to be relevant, which you can be over the top to very easily by commonly played cards like an Embercleave, a Rankle Master of Pranks, even can outclass some of this stuff on the battlefield. A Planeswalker that's about to go ultimate. But if this is a dimension that the game can operate on, where 2-for-1s and small to medium sized creatures matter, then this card is outstanding.
What if, here's some cards you could potentially be getting back. What if your deck has Blood Chief's Thirst? The Fatal Push sort of Hero's Downfall. It's black, destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less, and if the spell was kicked, which costs an additional 2 and a B, destroy target creature or planeswalker. So it can hit any cost if you pay 4. It is slow, but for 4 slow, you can kill any creature or planeswalker, and for 1, you can kill anything that costs 2 or less.
I mean, this card is very good, right? Its top end is similar to Vraska's Contempt, right?
Oh, I was thinking its top end is similar to Fatal Push. You're talking about powerful wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, all right, that's fine. I was thinking its bottom end, which is at B, is very similar to Fatal Push. And look, if you're playing against a lot of 2 casting cost or less creatures, which are often the creatures that are going to be coming after you earlier in the game, Blood Chief's Thirst is excellent, right? Obviously, the red deal 3, the Royal Eruption, is also going to be a great card to get back. That card is kicker.
Well, another reason that black is kind of attractive, though, I don't know if this ends up being good enough, but Blood Beckoning is kind of cute, right? Black, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, but it has the option you can kick it for 3 extra to get 2 creatures back. So if you end up playing some sort of a recursive chain where you just have the inevitability going along, you can keep Blood Beckoning back your plant elemental.
I mean, you're just creating in my imagination this utopian metagame where angling for 2-for-1s and medium-sized creatures is going to win the day, given 20 turns of progressive advantage play, which I would love if that were true. I just imagine myself being attacked by a Torbrand wearing an Embercleave or Yorion blinking one time, and all of my little chip shot 2-for-1s are washed away in a sea of damage or extra cards.
Yeah. Although there are some extra 2-for-1s if you want to keep the fantasy going. Get Tajiri Paragon back.
Yeah, look, man.
Get Inscription of Ruin back.
I want this to be good. I just don't believe that it would be. I think a little bit of that stuff where you have some initiative. I think that the Tajiri Paragon is a great example because it's a 3/2 creature for 2, and if you just whack all their stuff and they whack all your stuff and you're punching each other in the face and you draw it late, then in that case it's a very good extra card thing, but you played it for the 3/2 for 2-ness, not because you could chain together 22 for 1s. But there are matchups where chaining together 22 for 1s is unbeatable. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think
Royal, if you into the Royal and bounce your Sproutling for 9 mana, you're just up a card.
God, man. When when I played that blue-red Deceiver Exarch deck, I played 4 Into the Royal and only 3 Mana Leak.
Nice.
That's how much I like Into the Royal.
Sketchy, but nice. But, dude, you can really get ahead if you're playing some of the kicker matter stuff, like Roost of Drakes, blue enchantment. When Roost of Drakes enters the battlefield, if it was kicked for an additional 2 and a blue, you get a 2/2 blue Drake with flying. But it's just for 1 mana, makes it so that every time you kick a spell, you get a 2/2 blue Drake with flying.
Oh my god, this card is the best. I need kicker to be good.
How is this card not amazing? If you ever make a single Drake, naturally, you are doing it.
Wait, so and then if you play this for 4, right? Then you get
a 2/2 Drake. It's just sort of a backup plan.
So you get it. So it's just a 4 mana 2/2 flyer that leaves the extra body of a Roost of Drakes, right?
Right.
So you know what's great about this card? It has no additional mana requirements beyond just being in play. Like if you have like all 4 Roost of Drakes on the battlefield, like you are rocking and rolling every single time you cast an Into the Royal.
If you have a single one on the battlefield, you're rocking and rolling, man.
This is like a 1-card cycling linear deck.
Yeah, for 1 mana.
This is the Zendikar Rising equivalent of a Flourishing Fox.
But isn't this just much stronger?
I mean, again, if you have the time to kick things, I don't see how you could lose. Like,
how much time do you need? I guess you need to kick a little bit, but like, how many times? I mean, it's not like you have to do that much kicking.
Well, the problem is that there's just a lot of situations where a 2/2 creature that doesn't have a combat ability, like Death Touch or First Strike or something, is just going to be overwhelmed, even if you got it for free, by the fundamentals on somebody's double striking Trampler, or like these guys can't block Questing Beast, for example, right? Bounce cards are highly effective against it. You know, that's
big Questing Beast energy. I love it.
I mean, it is among the best threats in standard format. You know. So. And
you're right. Just being ahead by a couple 2-for-1s. I mean, it's not like you can't just have that evaporate very quickly with one of the Busto cards.
But I kind of feel like I want to make the Kickers Matter deck.
I know, and we should, because eventually they'll ban Uro, and then life will be good.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about Uro, Patrick. You read that card? It's also a 6/6 creature.
Dude, it's so good with landfall. It's so good with the graveyard synergies, and its life gain, and its card advantage. But it's not in Zendikar Rising.
You know what's great about Uro? It's in an era where people just play lots and lots of games. So you could just lose to Uro and move on, and the next game they might not have an Uro. And you forgot about all the extra cards they drew. You forgot about how if you hadn't missed that 1 point on turn 6, that you would have gotten them instead of them winning at 7.
There are some white cards, though. So one of the better white cards in the set.
Before we leave blue, I need to ask you a question about a blue card. Is this card even playable? Seagate Restoration for UUU. It's the Mythic Modal double face blue card. So
why would it not be playable?
I just don't want either side ever.
Yeah, you do. You want me to tell you which side you want?
Yeah,
you want Seagate Reborn.
I just want a land that sometimes comes into play untapped if I pay 3.
Yeah, because you don't want any land that count as lands in your deck. It makes blue mana for your combo deck, but it doesn't count as a land in your deck.
And it comes into play untapped.
Yep.
All right. But I don't see myself really wanting Seagate Restoration in very many legitimate decks.
Okay, here's another use. What if you play with this card in your Dream Halls deck?
Well, you're just naming combo decks that are like, this is a 7 cast.
This is clearly a combo card.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The reason I asked specifically about this card, because I have my head wrapped around a lot of the modal double face cards. It's like I just saw an Azorius Uro deck. I'm not Uro, sorry. Yorion deck that had 4 Seagate restorations, because why not play 40-plus lands these days? And I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't seem like one of the lands I would want to play.
I can imagine playing one of these. I don't know.
There were 4 in the list.
Yeah, it's just, it depends on, like, you got to be, like, really, 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 really in for the grind. But, I don't know, man. You do kind of draw a lot of cards from this. I could just see, it might be such, if the format's grindy at all, this goes way over the top, and it's a relatively low opportunity cost.
I mean, this is way over the top. Yeah, this is like...
Way over the top.
I mean, unless you top deck it when you don't have any cards in hand.
Why is your deck like that?
It happens!
I guess.
Like decks
not in 2020.
Decks that can cast a 7 often, use all their resources to get 7 land in play. That happens. It happens to the best of us. And me. White cards.
Yeah, so the Canyon Jerboa is 2 and a white for a 1/2. And it has landfall. Your creatures get +1/+1 until on a turn. It's cute. It's a mouse. Probably one of the best white cards for the last 10 years. Since white cards are not playable. Let me see. There's another one. Kite Sail Cleric. It's a 1/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, if you paid 4 mana, you can tap 2 creatures.
The Kite Sail Cleric is clearly an outstanding card if white weenie decks are good. Right?
Yeah, it's a 1/1 flyer with upside. And Core Blade Master. 1/1 double strike.
Well,
Dude, why don't they make real white cards, man? Or at least make the other cards balanced so that these real white cards are like, about anything that goes on in Standard these days.
Yeah, the problem is, like, you could play a lot of these cards and they're pretty decent on the fundamentals, but then you play against, like, the same deck as yours, but it's green, and, like, all their guys are 4 times the size of yours and have special abilities.
Mm-hmm. What about Felidar Retreat, man? That one could be good, right?
Yeah, that's
we talked about that in the
really
previous week, but there's just a real shortage of white cards for a change.
But if you're playing like a green-white deck and you played Felidar Retreat, that +1/+1 counter doubling guy, and then the green creature we were talking about earlier, the green 1-drop, like, I think that is all a very nice family that combines, pretty good initiative, right? It's not going to be like the fastest beatdown deck, but you could probably come out and start punching somebody, turn 2, 3, 4. But then the Felidar Retreat just gives you great lasting power. But unlike, if your 4-drop were a Vivian, it can't be attacked. Right? And, like, you could have multiple copies of it in play, and you can combine it with cards like Fabled Passage or Field of Ruin and really get something going on it. That second ability is really strong, especially when you consider the new green 1-drop.
Okay, I can see it. Dude, okay, how about this? Equip, some of the equip synergies, like Resolute Strike. Target creature gets +2/+2 until on a turn. If it's a warrior, you may attach an equipment you control to it.
Huh. So it's priced right, it's...
And obviously you're trying to move the Colossus Hammer over.
It's 2/3 of a giant growth, right, for 1 mana. And you have to have the equipment in play. That's not that much of a feat, when you're talking about certain of these equipment that have a cheap casting cost but a high activation cost. And people aren't going to see it coming a lot of the time. Those are all good bonuses.
Here's the part that's brutal. So, Auroch Glaive Master is the 1/1 that if it's equipped has +1/+1 in first strike. Human Soldier.
It's not even a warrior?
Kite Sail Apprentice is the white for a 1/1 Core Soldier. It has +1/+1 in flying when it's equipped. Core Duelist is 1 mana, 1/1, and as long as it's equipped, it has double strike. core soldier. Novice Knight is white for a 2/3 defender that can't. It needs to be enchanted or equipped in order to be able to attack. But it's a human knight, not a warrior.
They were just messing with us.
Yeah.
They are people.
Stoneforge Acolyte is a core artificer ally. Armament Master is a core soldier. Auriok Steel Shaper is a human soldier. But, yep, sorry, Warriors. Basically Kevin Durant. So I don't know, man. I don't know if there's enough Warriors that you really want to play. Maybe there are. But I don't know, man. There's got to be some white cards with a little juice under the hood.
What about Maul of the Skyclaves? How do you like this one?
So for 3 mana, you get +2/+2 and flying. So it's got kind of that Griffin Guide vibe, right? But then instead of being left with a 2/2 flyer, if your guy dies, you're left with an equipment. And it's not just a 2/2 flyer. It does get first strike, But this is part of that new breed of equipment that when it enters the battlefield, it immediately is equipped to something. So it kind of is like an aura at first, and then you just have this equipment that for 4 mana you can, give somebody else the pants. Yeah, it seems fine. I guess. I mean,
I think it seems
it's not like it seems fine. It's just if standard happens to be about this, then this is a fine offering.
It is about the same casting cost functionally as an Embercleave, and it's way worse than an Embercleave, huh?
Yeah, but it's white.
You got me there.
There are some blue cards though, so all is well. Are you feeling the Snapcaster Mage? 1 in a blue, 2/1. You get to the next instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 2 or less you cast this turn, you get to fork. And if you pay 7, you can kick it so that you'll double fork whatever you play next.
I can't imagine that card being playable.
You can't imagine it?
I can
okay.
Imagine it being playable. And I can imagine playing it myself. At the same time, I'm just not super excited by it. The Seagate Stormcaller. The kicker is enormously expensive.
It is. So, set aside the kicker for a minute. Imagine you're not kicking it. Because you're not. Let's imagine you're not kicking it. For 2 mana, plus you need to have 1 or 2 up to play another spell, you're actually you're doing a little something, right? Because for 4 mana, if you play a spell that costs 2, you're getting that spell that costs 2, and then you're getting another copy, but you just sort of have a 0 mana 2/1 cantrip.
I mean, it clearly...
You have to play your cards out of order, but it's pretty powerful, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly getting a Snapcaster Mage-like effect for a Snapcaster Mage-like cost. But and Snapcaster Mage is one of the greats. It's just it's clunky, right?
No, I don't know, man. If you just play this card on turn 3 with Opt, it's not that clunky. It's only clunky if you try to do instant speed shenanigans because this thing doesn't have flash. But as long as you're willing to just play at sorcery speed, it's pretty easy. If you just stick this in one of those Is It decks, you just play it and play Shock. You just play this card as long as you look at it like it's a 3 or a 4 drop, it's really strong.
Yeah, you know what? You can play this deck if you wanted to make a Ravenous Chupacabra. It'd be really easy to make a Ravenous Chupacabra out of Seagate Stormcaller.
Yeah.
And, that was your whole goal, right? So you just...
No, but you're getting ahead. You're not just the Chupacabra. So you got the selection of you chose Chupacabra instead of, a cantrip creature, right? But you also netted mana. Because, the turn you did it, you still spent 4 mana. If you play Eliminate and copy it or whatever, you still spent 4 mana like a Chupacabra, but you got to play a kill spell to your hand for 0 mana.
Yeah. I mean, I buy it. Like, I think that the card is, again, it just doesn't excite me very much because it seems very clunky. But I think that
You're out of your mind.
It's going to see play.
You think it's just going to see play? Oh my god. Okay, well, I am a buyer on this one.
I don't know. What do you want me to say? I don't think it's the best. I think it's going to see play.
Do you think this card's going to be a heavily played staple?
I think this is like a tier 2 standard card.
Oh my god. Okay, not only is this tier 1, do you think this card is, good in modern, historic?
Well, God knows what's good in historic. I don't even know what sets are legal in historic.
Dude, just double Thaw Season? Yeah!
So, but isn't this like the quintessence of a tier 2 standard card? Like, isn't
No.
Lightning Helix a tier 2 standard card? Isn't that like that's where the bar is? I feel like...
No. Are you kidding me? Lightning Helix?
Yeah.
No! No, if Lightning Helix was legal, it would not be a tier 2 card. Dude, Lightning Strike is like a ubiquitous staple when it's legal, and it's way worse than Lightning Helix.
You don't have to educate me about the Lightning Helix.
Apparently I do if you think it's a tier 2 card.
I thought that was the definition of a tier 2 card.
But you'd have to be not that good at defining tier 2 cards.
I thought a tier 2 card was a card that was popularly played, but was just not in every deck of that color and standard.
Yeah, no. I don't know about all that, man. Besides, the times have changed, and which cards are good. They've put more points in some places, less points in other places. Regardless of Lightning Helix being one of the best burn spells of the last decade.
The last decade is I think just dickering Lightning Helix a little bit. I think they're like, I think that we transcend the last decade.
Yeah, didn't it come out, 15 years ago?
I want to say 2005, yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know, man. Regardless of Lightning Helix, Seagate Stormcaller, it's like, I suspect, here's what I think is going on. I would guess that one of these two things is probably going on, or both. One of them is that you're looking at the massive upside of this kicker ability as downside. It's just another option. You can just do awesome things if the game stretches. But it looks a little ugly because it's expensive. Like, you got, 2/3 of the package for 2. It feels weird to pay 5 for the next third. But it's a free roll. I was in for the 2. The second part is that I think you might be missing about 2 mana worth of what's going on with Seagate Stormcaller.
Wait, I have an important question to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's say I have 11 mana, right? So I have 5 plus 2 is 7, right, for the Seagate Stormcaller with kicker, and then an additional 4 for a kicked into the Royal. Okay? I have 11 mana, and I'm deploying it between these 2 pieces of cardboard. How many Drakes do I make?
1.
1?!
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But, dude, if you have Seagate Stormcaller, I really think the part that you're missing about this is that it's like, how in accounting, you could count something twice and it's not really fair. You're kind of cheating because you're
accounting.
Seagate Stormcaller is doing some funny accounting with your mana. You're not paying for the copy. You're not paying a card, and you're not paying mana. When it copies, it looks like you're spending 2 mana and getting an effect that costs 2, or 1, and in that case you're paying 1. But like in the times where you pay 2 and you copy it, you didn't pay any for the 2/1. How is that not incredible? It's like a Silvergill Adept with selection, but instead of costing 2 mana, it doesn't cost any mana.
Well, I think it'll see play.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Put me down for we'll see a lot of play.
I plan to own 4 copies of this card. How about that?
Sure. I would get in early on that one. Incidentally, another kicker card, so you can just get it back, for your long-term grind. But I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of really powerful stuff in this set. You got one more in mind?
Did you?
Dude, there's so many more.
I think this set is just full of staples that are gonna see play, like maybe quietly see play in a bunch of different formats for a long, long time. Like I just get the sense of
Quiet.
it. Like
I love that you feel like these are gonna be. It's just gonna be quiet. I don't think it's gonna be quiet. I think it's gonna be very over the top. Some of the staple. It's gonna be very obvious. Like, you probably would not consider Fatal Push to be quietly a staple, right?
I think I would. It's not. It's like a support card. It's not. Like
it's the definition of a tier 2 card.
I think Fatal Push might be a tier 1 card, actually.
The best removal spell of all time.
Like I said, I think it might be a tier 1 card.
Okay, cool. I don't know, man. There's got to be like 6 more green cards worthy of exploration. But honestly, this might seem kind of weird, but I'm kind of into Cinderclasm.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know it might just seem like, it's another one of those, but I think the time is right. So Cinderclasm is the 1 in a red, instant. Kick a red. Cinderclasm deals 1 damage to each creature, and if it was kicked, it deals 2 instead. So it's another one of those 3 mana fast deal 2s, but it has the option to be a 2 mana fast, 2 mana instant speed deal 1, and it's got little interactions and quirks and things. Like, it technically costs 2, even though its cost is 3, so to speak. All these kicker cards take on an interesting context when you consider them through the lens of things like Garuda and Obosh,
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking with Cinderclasm, it's one of those things where if you just play guys that have greater than 1 toughness, then you just get a whole extra dimension with the 2 mana version of Cinderclasm, right? It's no big deal about the 3 casting cost cards that either give -2/-2 or deal 2 damage to everything, right? There's all kinds of different things like that in black.
But they're frequently good.
Yeah.
They have purpose. They're niche.
They're widely played in both black and red. I'm just saying, I think that the fact that you can do it for 1 and then just play guys that have 2 toughness.
For 2. But yeah. Oh, for 1 damage, right?
For 1 damage, yeah, it's pretty cool. The card that I was like kind of really head-scratching is Moraug, Fury of the Akum, which is 6 casting cost, 6/6 mythic rare Minotaur Warrior. So this is a very, very awkward card, but it's extraordinarily powerful if you actually get it going. Like, super powerful, right?
Wait, why is it so awkward?
It's big and dumb.
It's not awkward. It's expensive, but it's not awkward.
So,
I don't know.
Moraug,
yeah.
Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it's attacked this turn. So, in the normal world, nobody gets +1. But then you read the next paragraph. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control...
No, it's not. No, each creature you control gets +1 for each time it's attacked this turn.
Yeah.
So, your creatures attack for the first time?
Oh, they all get +1.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, but the second ability...
Yeah, so if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So your creature's going to be attacking multiple times, getting multiple bonuses. But attacking multiple times is already very powerful, right? If you have multiple creatures, especially. So a Fabled Passage is, could that get you multiple extra attacks?
Yeah. If you just play this card as a 7-drop and then crack your Evolving Wild or Fabled Passage, you can just triple attack with whatever you have, and they're dead.
Yeah, just him himself, because of the...
Well, he doesn't have haste.
No, I'm just saying if you get an attack with Morog, if you're
well, then you're
eligible for one attack with Morog.
Infinite. Yeah, if you're eligible for one attack, you're going to do oodles of damage.
So, yeah, this card seems really... I'm not sure if it's good, because, it's a 6. Once you start talking about things that are this expensive...
It's not a 6, it's a 7.
Yeah, that's even worse.
And then you win the game. How big of a board? Just take a guess. If you let's say you had 3 1/1s. You just have 3 1/1s. How much do you see yourself attacking for if you go Morog and then Evolving Wilds?
So 3 1/1s will attack for 6 the first time.
Or
right?
Fable, anything, yeah.
Yeah. Attack for 6 the first time, 9 the second time, and then 12 the third time?
So 27 damage.
With 3 1/1s, and he didn't even get to attack himself.
No, with haste. You functionally just gave your 3 1/1s plus 24.
Wow. Yeah, he's very powerful.
What if you had a creature that when it attacks plays a land in some way?
Oh, well, unfortunately we have those. That's a thing we have.
Like, this card's really strong with Uro. Titan of Nature's Wrath, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you attack with Uro, you can play another land. Now, the thing that's weird is that you don't get the bonus. That combo would have been too good, and remember, this landfall only works when it's your main phase. So that's not the one we're looking for. Uro's a great card, but it's not like Uro needs Morog.
I was thinking about playing Morog in a Genesis Ultimatum deck, but then I was like, there's a lot of high end there.
Dude, I love where your heart's at. Part of the problem, though, is if you Genesis Ultimatum, well, no, that could be okay.
All right, you could have stuff in play already when you Genesis Ultimatum. Those lands come into play on your main phase. Right?
Dude, what if you just had Knight of the Reliquary? And, I don't know, some way to give your Knight of the Reliquary Vigilance.
Vigilance, yeah. That's infinity.
I don't know, man. There's got to be some sweet combos you can do. This guy is, it's pretty expensive playing with just a 6-cost card, but I think it's going to win enough games on its own that it's going to find a home.
Yeah, that 3 1/1s thing is kind of shocking. I was kind of thinking about Morag as a solo unit, because again, if you're ever eligible to attack with it, they're in trouble.
Oh yeah, but I think you got to really look at this through the lens of you play it, and then you play an Evolving Wild or Fabled Passage and kill them.
I like it.
2 2/2s? 6, 8, 10? It's 24.
That is not a hard ask by turn 6 or 7.
To have 2 2/2s?
Yeah, they're not a hard ask.
Nope. So, dude, you could have a single Nighthawk Scavenger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it'll just do 6 and then 7 and then 8. That's 21.
Yeah, that's also a life deck. You also had a Japanese combo deck from 2004 as part of that sequence.
Yep. So excited, new cards. Hopefully the cool ones are good.
I would play it with Valakut Exploration. That's where I had that earmarked in my head.
You're gonna have to discard it a bunch then.
Yeah, well, I think I could probably get over it given the fact that both of them are both generating such a big advantage.
I don't see Morog as generating a big advantage. I see it as they dead. Like you try to set it up, and then like Primeval Titan generates a lot of advantage, right?
Yes.
But this card is aspiring to be more of the into the breach or through the breach kind of advantage.
I guess.
Like how much?
Like Primeval Titan is two different cards. Right? Primeval Titan is both the card that gets, a bunch of Radiant Fountains or Kabira Crossroads or something like that into play, but it's also the card that gets Slayer Stronghold into play, tapped, untaps, attacking mid-combat, right?
It can be. Dude, Morog, Fury of Akum is a legend. You can Shallow Grave this bad boy, or all those different variations,
Ooh.
If you just use Goryo's Vengeance, but for 2 mana, and then like if you went turn 1, discard this guy, or whatever, do it on turn 2, because if you on turn 3 just Goryo's Vengeance and fetch land, that's 7, 8, 9 for 24 damage.
I like it.
That's really strong, right?
Well, you're also, in this scenario, you're a black deck, so you can have taken their answers away before you deign to attack.
Yeah, and through the breach with this is 24.
Yeah. I think maybe this is actually better as a combo piece in bigger formats. This is like a plausible thing.
Definitely. That's the whole point of this card, wherever you want to play it, is to one-shot people. That's going to be a lot easier in the powered formats. This is a major combo card.
Yeah, this reminds me of a bunch of cards that Brad Nelson was playing in Legacy a few years ago. He just played like all these red cards. That was like half of a show and tell deck, but it was all red. This seems like it would slot right into some of that stuff. It seems like way better than like Inferno Titan.
If you show and tell this into play, they dead. So yeah, it's going to combo kill people a lot more than Inferno Titan. It's not as good on the backup plan. Inferno Titan is great when you're losing. Morog, not as much.
Fair enough.
But that's partly because you can't really compare it to Inferno Titan. Inferno Titan's a 6, Morog is a 7.
I think superficially, they're both 6/6s for 6 with a bunch of abilities and text.
Well, for 6 mana, my money's on. I'm going with Inferno Titan.
Yeah, but for 7 mana, when you're Inferno Titan, it's you can
now I'm in for Morog.
You can put a little bit in.
Yes. Awesome, dude.
All right.
Look forward to seeing you next week, man.
Same. Okay.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge for jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost